Yeah, I'll always be a metalhead. Nothing can take that away from me.
Right.
I mean, not jail, not people, not religion, not anything. I'll always be a metalhead, 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 all out.
You're listening to the Great Metal Debate Podcast.
Welcome back to the Great Metal Debate Podcast. Before we get to the album review, a reminder to like, follow, or subscribe to the show on whatever platform you found us on, and thank you so much for your support. Today we're reviewing the latest release from Indian heavy thrash veterans Kryptos titled Decimator, which is released on July 5th through AFM Records. To my knowledge, we've not explored an album by a metal band from India previously, which is certainly an oversight on our part. Checking in with our friends over at the Metal Archives, they list a mere 362 metal bands from that nation of 1.4 billion people, which has to be an undercount. I can only imagine the many as yet unrecognized Indian musicians who will be making themselves known in the years and decades to come. Kryptos are a known quantity, though. Founded back in 1998, Decimator is their seventh full-length album. They've had multiple tours across Europe, performing in legendary venues and sharing the bill with many metal icons. Let's check out this new album, Decimator, and see how it stacks up. The track list begins with Sirens of Steel, which debuts in epic fashion before transitioning into galloping riffs. There's a touch of thrashiness here, but it's more like a thrash-influenced true metal than a thrash band that wears its trad metal roots on its sleeve. The guitars are very forward in this one, with lots of lead accents thrown in throughout, sometimes more and sometimes less successfully. The vocals are thrash-ish, with the lyrics rapped out in lightly goblin-esque fashion by singer and guitarist Nolan Lewis. Fall to the Spectre's Grave sets a rollicking sonic core with strong riffing and sing-songy verse. There's some good stuff. I really enjoyed the guitar lead break as well as a vigorous climax. I just could have used a bit more variability in the vocal melody, which is extremely repetitive in its presentation. A small change up there could have improved the song immeasurably. A cheesy 80s metal intro transitioning into a generic 80s metal riff is what greets us for Turn Up the Heat, the next track in the listing. That comes across as harsher than I mean. In some ways, I'm giving a compliment. This is every bit as engaging and dynamic a track as one might routinely find on an Accept or Metal Church album back in the day when those bands were fresh and relevant. Similarly constructed, albeit a bit different in the details of its execution, is Electricity. This is perhaps a cautionary tale to artists that when you give a song such an energetic title, you better be certain the music delivers in like manner. It's a fine song, a mid-paced rocker that has the nostalgic feel of some metal anthems of old. There's some quite nicely done lead guitar fills and flourishes, which I enjoyed, and the song pace does increase toward the end in a pleasing fashion. Good riffs, but an underwhelming chord structure. Track 5, Solaris, is a soft guitar piece that is only slightly past a minute and a half in length, segueing into the title track, Decimator. I get some definite Painkiller-era Judas Priest vibes on Decimator with the pulsating double bass and plunging sonic guitar dives. Unfortunately, overall, I didn't find much inspiring. The riffing is somewhat stale and repetitive. There's no progression or twists here. A minute in, and you can basically predict how the remainder of the song will sound. With In the Shadow of the Blade, we find one of the album's most compelling melodies and some nice interplay between the rhythm and lead guitar lines. It's somewhat paint by numbers in the song construction, but the simple approach works well here. Yet again, I yearn for a bit more variability in the vocal presentation. If the singer could just have gone up even half an octave on the final verse, it would have truly made the track explode. Next up is Pathfinder, which has a pleasant if predictable primary riff and some nice, timely tempo changes. However, I thought the composition missed opportunities in the transitions between verses, choruses, and breaks, with those changeovers seeming to happen somewhat ham-handedly. Another track that was fine for what it is, but could have been even better. The album concludes with We Are the Night, a mid-paced track that has almost a 70s rock mood to it, or at least a new wave of British heavy metal feel. Stylistically, this falls outside my usual sweet spot, but I actually think it is a really effective song, which feels like it fits well with the overall musical aesthetic of the band. The lead break is really tasty, and the riffing throughout is enjoyable. This might be my favorite track on the album, leading me to wish the band had given more of this approach and, by inference, gone with less of what I'd heard earlier. In terms of a summary of my thoughts of the album overall, I'm going to do that thing organizational leaders do in meetings to establish the ideal praise to criticism ratio. I'll start by highlighting where the band is effective, then we'll move into some things I'm critical about with this album, then finish with additional words of approval. Let's start with a positive. Kryptos are clearly well versed in their craft and knowledgeable about how to construct metal songs. The band set a high floor where none of those songs are stinkers. Indeed, I'm not sure Kryptos are capable of writing a bad song because they play it so very safe every step of the way, relying on the tried and true paths that are sure to work. There's a lot to admire in this approach. Now the criticism. I don't want to be unrealistic, and there's nothing inherently wrong with retreading old territory. But this release is literally devoid of any attempt at innovation or to develop a unique musical thought. And the primary problem with that is that, while Decimator can be a pleasant listen, I could provide a laundry list of bands, past and present, providing a similar genre sound who do it better. I might be more generous if Kryptos was outsourcing nostalgia in a campy way, like Cobra Spell or Beast in Black, but even those bands smartly clothe their retro stylings in modern production and with advances in performance hidden beneath the 80s panache. Decimator is merely a straightforward metal album that takes no risk at all and, as a result, will have a hard time competing for attention. But let me end with another positive. I love the spirit and fire these guys show. It is clear that Kryptos are fans of metal who have drunk deeply from the well dug by past greats like Anvil, Grim Reaper, Flotsam Jetsam, Manowar, Krokus, and many others of their ilk. The music doesn't lie. So they are my kind of people, metalheads, and I adore them for that. If I met those guys, I'd give them all a hug, and we'd go down to the music hall and bang heads together for metal. Ultimately, I'll say that Decimator is worth checking out. You won't hate what you hear, but I don't know that many will love it either. I absolutely respect these guys for what they're doing, while at the same time not being overly impressed with their efforts. I'm giving Decimator a 5 out of 10 rating. You can purchase Kryptos' new Decimator album from AFM Records, follow them on social media, and be sure to watch for the band going out on tour soon to support the release.